Hello and welcome to the start of a new series of tutorials where I will be showing you in depth how to build your very own server using Python. What I will be doing is starting off with something very simple, and then as the episodes go on we'll gradually get more and more complexity. So we're going to start off with just a simple one-page item with some very simple functionality, just like a sort of basic hello world sort of script. And then as we go on, we're going to look at things like get and post requests and HTTP responses, also authentication using JWT tokens, login requests, adding session data, adding cookie information, writing and coding and making and building your own cookies, and then also potentially looking at recaptures, two-factor authentication, and some things that have come out as a part of a more recent update. The module in question that we'll be using for all of this is called Flask, and Flask is built exactly for this purpose, for the purpose of creating your very own server. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the documentation. So here we have the Flask documentation. So if we go up to the top, you'll see here, and I'll put a link to the Flask documentation in the description below. And as you can see here, they're starting with sort of a hello world script as well. That's kind of standard when it comes to these sort of things in Python. And I think it's really great documentation as well. So if we go down, we can see here, this is the debug mode. If you put that on, you can see line by line what the error is and where you're getting the error. And then it provides also some really great examples along with showing you the functionality as well. So yeah, I think it's really great documentation. But first things first, let's go ahead and start building our script. Now I do want to say that as well as doing some live demonstrations, I do also pre-plan a lot of my tutorials, and this is one of those series where everything will be pre-planned. And so I've got the code here below, but I will also write things line by line, but I also have the code below just in full transparency. So the first thing you may need to do, if you haven't already, is you'll need to install Flask potentially. So you type in pip install Flask into your terminal, press enter and run it. And when I say terminal, I mean this thing down here. And then you'll have some things appear like this. It says for me requirement already satisfied. That's because I've already installed it. But just wait till that runs, and then wait for a bit for it all to sort of import throughout the whole system. Then once that has been done, we're now ready to go with our first small Python Flask application. One thing I do want to mention is that we will be focusing mainly on the Python sides of things. So these tutorials, my channel is all about coding aspects of things. There's tons of stuff about creating your own HTML and CSS. That's all free online. Just have to type in sort of things like build your own HTML page or something like that, and you can get a ton of free HTML page creators and things like that. So we're just going to focus on the sort of functionality aspect of things here. So after you've installed Flask, the first thing you need to do is type in from Flask with a lowercase f, referencing the Python module, import Flask with a capital F. So it's very important to make that distinction. And then once you've done that, just go to the new line and type in app, and this is where everything will be initiated from, equals what was it again? It was app equals Flask underscore underscore name underscore underscore. So this app is where everything will sort of initiate from and get created from. So all this server will be initiated in your local network, and so every time you run this server, it will be initiated on 127.0.0.1 IP address with a specific port. So if you're doing this along with me, don't be worried about seeing that IP address or anything like that, or if you're giving away IP addresses or things like that. That's common for everything within your local host, within your local network. Next thing here is, I'm just going to copy this one, I think. If you go down here, copy this. If you go if name equals main, then you run the app, and this is common practice in lots of Python development, just to make sure that things are running in the right environment, so that it's basically just things running in the right environment and in the correct way. So the next thing now is we can get onto the juicy stuff. So after you've initiated the app and you've done the if name equals main, then we can start by building our very first piece of information that when we open our server, then we will get some functionality. In this case, it's hello world. So the first thing we need to do is we type in the @ sign, and then we type in @app.root, and then we're going to specify sort of just here /. So in root here, root is another word for app.root is the URL path or the URL web page path. So if we call in app.root here, just a / is the home page. But if we then did / view, for example, then whatever functionality we associate with the app.root will only work if we go to the -view page, and we can keep going and call it view extra plus or whatever. These are random words coming into my head, but you get the idea. So that functionality associated with this app.root will only work if we visit this page and do a certain action potentially. But we're going to start off by just going /. So once we've done that, we can then create our first function. So we put def hello world like that. We're going to return hello world. Like that. Yeah. So that is our first script created. So now we can run this and see what happens. So if we save it, if you're using a shell like I am, make sure you specify the .py when you're saving the file, and then we can run it. So you just go press play, and notice here that this thing will appear at the bottom. It says running on HTTP and then 127.0.0.1, and then here it specified a port name for me. So if we go to that link, notice you get a line here. It mentions your local IP address, and then it has like a date of access, and then it has something here. It says get / HTTP 1.1 and then 200. And we'll talk about this in more detail as we go along, but essentially get is what we call a method, and there are several different methods that you can use that will help to add functionality to your site. And the most get and post are a couple of the most common HTTP requests methods out there. And then 200 is another key thing to realize here, and that is the HTTP status code or response, which basically says that the connection is okay and it works well. A more common one, which you may have heard, is the 404, which means that the page is not found. So if the page didn't exist, you get instead of 200 here, you'll get a 404. So if we then go into the page here, and we zoom in, you can see here that at 127.0.0.1 with port 5000, we have the word hello world that has appeared. And we can restart this now. This is now a server that's online in your local network. And the more we rerun it, the more calls we make here. You see that now we've got a heap of new lines in our Python shell. So that's it for part one. We've got a lot more coming up, but hopefully that was a really good first step for you to understand how to build your own server using Python. So I'll catch you in the next episode.